Hello everybody. Today I'm very excited to bring to you something new. This is the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus. This is the latest offering from Raspberry Pi. It's a single board computer. It's a full computer, all on a single board, the size of a credit card. Really quite remarkable. And it is built in the UK, and it'll be the first UK built computer that I put together since the Sinclair ZX81 I had in 1981. And yeah, that was a lot of fun too, but this ought to be fun as well. I'm excited to put this together. So what I'm going to do today in this video is I'm going to give you an overview of what this is. Then I'm going to assemble it into a case, then show you how to load the operating system from the ground up. And also, I may go over the operating system, some of the settings inside the operating system so that you can be, up and running with the operating system, which will be Linux. It's a Linux, it's called Raspian, and it's a Linux distribution that runs on this machine. But, I think I'll be able to get this whole project off the ground, running completely for under $100. The Raspberry Pi Model B Plus is under $40, just about anywhere you want to go buy it. It's available on Amazon, it's available on eBay, and several other retailers online as well. I'll put a link to all that stuff in the video description below for you, and everything that's on this video will be linked in the video description below so that you can get it from the same people I got it from. But yeah, I should be able to assemble the entire computer up and running for under $100. All right, we're going to do the unboxing here, which, as you can see, pretty plain box, nothing really special about it. Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus. That's it. Look at the back. A little bit more of stuff here, getting started. Tells you where to go to get the started guide, which is at Raspberry Pi. I'll put those links in the video description below. And the box originally comes glued shut. I just lift up the front label, as you can see the two glue pads there. And then inside you will find, unceremoniously, the most anticlimactic unbox you're ever going to get. Just a Raspberry Pi sitting there without even an anti-static bag. So we'll just pull it out of the box. And then a couple of pamphlets on there, regulatory pamphlets, nothing really of any value, legal stuff that you're never going to read. And that's it for the unboxing. So then we got the Raspberry Pi right here. And for sizes on this, its length is 85 millimeters. Its width is 56 millimeters. Its height is probably another, 15 millimeters maybe. And, actually, I'll check that out here. Here we go. Tell you what it is. There we go. Actually pretty close. 17.72 millimeters in height. And that's basically it. And if you want a comparison here to see what size it actually is, here's a little credit card, little junk card I have. Take a look. Exact same size as a credit card, basically. See that? Not neat? Very tiny. So let's go over the components here. We've got the Broadcom BCM 2837B0 processor. It's a Cortex-A53 ARM version 8, 64-bit quad-core processor at 1.4 gigahertz, right there. It's got a gigabyte of LPDDR2 SD RAM, 2.4 gigahertz, and 5 gigahertz. So it's BGN and AC wireless LAN. That's that component right there. It's got Bluetooth 4.1 BLE, which is actually excellent. 4.2 is a 250% faster than 4.1 standard on Bluetooth, so that's cool, and it's more reliable. And I think that the range is more or less the same. Now it's got gigabit Ethernet over 2.0 USB 2.0, as you can see here. And well, that really doesn't make it a gigabit, but it sure makes it a lot faster than 100 megabits per second. It makes it 300 megabits per second because it's going over USB 2, and that makes it a little slower, okay? So it does have a gigabit Ethernet port, so when you connect it, it will be talking, or whatever you connect it to will think it's a gigabit port, but it can only transfer data at 300 megabits per second maximum. It's got the GPIO header, which is the interface pins that you see here. These are this is the connector for all things real. Like say you were going to put a weather vane on it, this is where you would connect it along this pin. It's got a full-size HDMI port right there. Perfect. 4 USB ports. Of course, all of them are USB 2. They're not USB 3, so if you're looking for that, maybe look somewhere else. Plenty fast for this board as far as I'm concerned. CSI camera port, and that is right here. This little slot there. And that allows you to plug in what they call the Raspberry Pi camera. A DSI display port over here. That's this port here. For connecting the Raspberry touch screen display. So that's pretty cool. You can put a touch screen display on it. 4-pole stereo output and composite video output port right there. You can see it. It's plug-in. And micro SD port on the back right there for loading the SD card, which will be holding your operating system and can also store data. It's got a micro USB port here for power, 5 volts, 2.5 amp DC power input, and it can also be powered with power over Ethernet. And it says its support requires a separate PoE hat, and a hat is a circuit board that lays on top of this one and plugs into the GPIO port, and that will power this thing over Ethernet. So that's basically the rundown on the actual board itself. Next, we're going to show you all the components I'm going to use to build this into a computer that runs Linux, the Raspian version of Linux. And then we're going to do that too, install it and have it run. All right, here's all the things I'm going to be using for this Raspberry Pi project. I'm going to be using a 2.6 5-volt power supply plugged into this USB port. More than enough juice for it, and I'm using the USB port because it has on and off buttons to turn the power on and off, which will make it a lot easier to reboot or shut down the Raspberry Pi. You don't want to be plugging in and out of the micro USB port all the time. You'll wear the port out, eventually it'll break or it'll start malfunctioning, and you know, I'm not sure about you, but I wouldn't want to be going to try and fix that. Now, I'm going to use a standard USB to micro USB cable, as you see here, to plug into it. And that's going to be my power source right there. Now, if you want to get real creative and make it mobile, you could use something like an Anker power supply or a power bank like this. This is a 2 amp Anker power supply or a power bank, 10,000 milliamp hours. You could use something like that if you wanted to go mobile. But again, I'm here, I'm at home, so I don't need to use anything like that. I will also be using a micro SD card for the operating system. Now, I'm using the SanDisk Extreme 32 gigabyte micro SD card. And again, I'm going to put links to all the stuff in the video description below for you guys. And reason for that is, number one, it's very fast, and speed does matter. The faster your micro SD card is, the faster the operating system actually works. It's just like a hard drive in a laptop. The faster the hard drive is, the faster the laptop or computer responds. So that's what I'm going to be using. The micro SD card did come with this SD converter, so I'm going to be using that to plug that into my computer so that I can load the operating system onto that micro SD card, and I will show you how to do that as well. If you don't have one of those adapter cards, something like this card reader here will do. This is a USB card reader that will take that micro SD card, and I can plug that into a computer or my PC and have that work if you don't have one of those adapter cards. But most times when you buy one, you get one of these with it. I will be using a USB mouse, USB keyboard here. A wireless USB mouse works just fine. And on top of that, though I don't have it showing here, I'm going to have a 1080p monitor hooked in through HDMI to that HDMI port. As well, I'm going to connect it to my network using Ethernet and an Ethernet cable here on the Ethernet port to my router. So I'm not showing that, but more or less most people have those things. And if you don't, you can also connect wirelessly to this board, even on the operating system installation, which is really cool. Okay, so on top of all this, I'm gonna put it into an acrylic case, which I bought right here. Again, links in the video description below. I want to put it into a nice protective case. I don't want it lying around like this, or just basically to protect it and make it look pretty as well. And I'm going to show you how all that gets assembled to the actual Raspberry Pi 3. So next, I'm going to put this in that acrylic case. Okay, here's all the stuff that comes with my Raspberry Pi case. As you can see, 3 heat sinks, a bunch of hardware, screws, and so on. A cooling fan, which is really neat. I'll show you how to hook that up. And a couple of acrylic panels, the top and bottom, for the actual case itself. And I'm going to unpack all this stuff here and show you exactly how much and what all the components are. I just wanted to show you what they were out of the package. And I'm going to peel off the protective covering on these pieces of acrylic here, so that we'll be able to see right through them. It's up to you whether you do that or not. You could actually just leave it on there if you wish. It's up to you. But I want to make it nice and clear and pretty. So let's unpack all that, and I'll show you all the hardware. So here's all the hardware that came with that kit. We've got 3 small heat sinks, a Phillips little jeweler's screwdriver, 4 short brass standoffs, 4 long brass standoffs, 4 short screws, and 4 nuts for those screws, I assume. 4 more larger screws, I believe they go on the bottom of these large standoffs. 4 rounded nuts or capped nuts. These go on top of these standoffs, I believe. I've got the fan hardware, which is a grill, a fan, 4 screws to secure the fan, and 4 nuts to lock it down. So I'm going to put that all together for you here. Plus, of course, the 2 acrylic panels that comprise the top and the bottom of the kit. And I'll peel the labels off of those here in a sec. All right, here's the acrylic panels with the protective paper taken off of them. You can barely see them, they're so clean. They're going to be the top and the bottom, this being the top, this being the bottom. We're going to now attach the Raspberry Pi to all of this, or start applying all this hardware to it so we can build this case. So the first thing to do here is to apply this heatsink, which is a RAM heatsink, little copper heatsink, to the Raspberry Pi. And the RAM is right here on the Raspberry Pi, on the bottom of it. So I'm going to take that little copper thing, peel off the adhesive on the bottom, and stick it on there. Okay, I wanted to show you that heatsink just so that you know how to peel the adhesive off. There's a white and a blue layer. You want to leave the white layer on the heatsink. You can see the copper there. And you want to just peel back the blue protective layer. That is the plastic that's covering the adhesive. So you want to get that off. So pick with it with your fingernail and get that off. And then peel it off and put it onto the Raspberry Pi RAM. So let's do that. As I said before, you want to leave the white on the bottom. That's the sticky. So let's put that on there. There you go. Get it nice and centered. There we are. Looks good. All right, there's the heatsink on the actual RAM. I'm gonna get it on. There we go. Nice and straight. Nice and straight. And we'll go with the rest of the hardware next. So step 2 here, we're going to put the bottom standoffs for the Raspberry Pi on the bottom plate right here. So what we're going to use is these these small head screws that we got 4 of here, these 4 here. And we're going to put one at a time on the bottom with the short standoffs, which are these over here. So we're going to use, basically what we're going to use is a screw and a short standoff, as you see right there, for each post. And so we'll do that right now. And I'll tighten that up with a screwdriver later. But there are 4 holes in this bottom panel here. here, here. Actually, there's 8, but it's the 4 inner ones that we're going to put these short standoffs on, and I'll tighten it up after we've got it all secured. So there we have the 4 bottom standoffs secured to that acrylic panel. Again, see where that the small ones go in the inner 4 and the large ones go in the outer 4 holes. So I'm going to tighten this down using this little screwdriver a little bit. Don't want to go too hard. This is acrylic, remember, you don't want to break it. So there we go. Now we go on to the next step, which is securing the actual raspberry on here. And remember to, you see the micro SD slot here, it needs to go into that cutout right there. That's why that cutout is there, is to make that easy to get the SD card in there, easy in and out. So there I just secured it to the 4 posts. Work perfect. As you can see that you can get at the SD slot no problem, micro SD slot without any issue, and that's part of the design. So here it's starting to come together. Next, we're going to put the bolts on to secure the Raspberry Pi on top, and that's just simple. It's 4 of these little things. Sorry, nuts. That's these 4 nuts here. I got one here. I'm putting it on already. And I'll use a pair of needle nose on these very carefully to tighten them down a bit when I'm done. Or actually, I got a pair of forceps. I'll show you what I use. So let's keep going here. All right, you saw how much fun those nuts were to put on there because it's very tight spaces. I have big fingers and they're pretty dry at this time of the year. But I got them on there. I used a pair of forceps like these to get them on there on the last 2. But I want to caution you, look how close these nuts come to everything on this board, like the micro SD, the micro USB port, or over here we've got one, it looks like I believe that's a resistor, I'm not sure, but it's a very small surface mount component right next to the nut. So be very careful with those components when you're putting these nuts on there. Be patient. Same again here, we got connectors really close to that nut. And over here, probably the easiest nut of them all to put on because it was further away from everything. But just be careful with the components on the boards with those nuts. That's my only warning on that job. So I'm going to tighten those down using my forceps, and then we'll move on. I carefully tightened down all those nuts using my forceps, which have an angle to them, which made it a lot easier. But you can see how easily you could break stuff if you don't do this right. You've got the power port right here, micro USB power port, a couple of LEDs right here you could easily damage if you don't do the tightening right. So be very, very careful when you're tightening down these nuts on top. Same over here, same here, and same here, right? So they're good now. Let's get on to the next step. Right, next step will be to put these small little tiny heat sinks on these 2 chips, the CPU and this one over here. I'm going to peel the blue backing off the adhesive there and stick those on there, and then we'll be done with that. Once again, I want to show you that you need to peel off just the blue backing, not the white. The white is the adhesive. So we'll peel off the blue backing and put that on there. Don't they look nice? There we go. So there we have the two CPU heat sinks, or the components heat sinks right there. Now we've got the bottom backing on it, and we have the RAM cooling heat sink on there too. So nice. So far looks really nice, really great. The only concern I had was these bolts here, these nuts being a little tough to get on there. But I think if you're careful, and with all the little components that are near the nuts, like you see right there, see how near those LEDs are to those nuts, and how close those surface mount components are to that nut. Over here, not too much to worry about. Same as over here, not much to worry about too, but just be careful with those. So let's continue on to the next step. Next is securing the fan to the top cover. This has got to be done correctly to work right, because the fan has a certain way that it blows air, what you want it to do is you blow air down onto the CPU when it's mounted correctly. So we've got the cover here the way it should be mounted. If you're looking down on the Raspberry Pi, it'll be in this direction like so, right? So key off the GPIO port right here, the 40-pin port, and you can see the long slot where that 40-pin port goes. So that's the way you want to configure the fan. Now you see the label on that. There's only a label on one side of that fan. You want that label facing downwards towards the CPU, because that's the direction of airflow. So you see the label, the air is blowing through this fan in that direction. So you want it to blow down onto the CPU, and this will be mounted underneath the actual top plate like so, okay? And that's how it's going to go and blow down on top of that CPU. So we've got the 4 long screws here, the 4 nuts over here, and the grill, and we have to assemble all that. So let's do that. And put the screws through the bottom of the fan. Get these in here. Sorry. Here we go. And then just basically put them all through as such. And after you're done that, just lay the fan down on your flat surface like so. There we go. And you see that I've got the label facing down towards the surface because I'm going to put the plate on top like so. And you also note where the power output cord, this one here, is coming out, because it's going to be connecting to the GPIO port as well. So you want it to be close to that. I guess you could give it a 90-degree turn in this way, and that would give you a little bit less extra wire if you wanted to do it that way. But I like it like that. That's fine for me. Next, we're going to put the grill on top like so. And then fasten the 4 little nuts on top of the bolts or the screws. All right, those are all finger tight now. The fan label is facing in the right direction, and as you can see, the grill is mounted nicely. It looks great. I'm going to use my little screwdriver that came with this kit to tighten those down. Like I said, don't go too super tight. This is just plastic after all. There we go. So there it is, all tightened down, ready to go. So that's the top plate ready to be mounted. Let's continue on from here. All right, we're done with we're almost done with this case assembly. We're going to use these large brass standoffs on the bottom of the case with the large screws that go into them. So let's put one in at a time. There we go. So I just put the screw through the case and screw the actual post onto it. I will tighten them down here in a minute. There's one. Let's do the rest. All right, I've got those on there, and I noticed that I only hand tighten them right at this moment because I want to make sure that the top cover fits right, and it does just perfectly. It's a very well assembled or machined kit, so there's the case more or less assembled at this point. I'm going to tighten down these 4 posts using a little screwdriver and put the top nuts on. But before we do that, before we put the top nuts on, we have to install the fan, and I'll show you how to do that next. All right, before we put the top fan cover or the top cover on this whole case, you have to connect the electrical connector to the GPIO port, and where you're going to connect it to is right here. Where it's going to go is on the second 2 pins. So we've got 1 pin on the corner here. We're going to go to second and third. So the connector, this one, is going to be connecting to the second and third pin, and we want the red connector to go on the second pin and the black connector to go on the third pin. So let me show you that. Just like so. There we go. So you can see, hopefully you can see, we skipped the first pin, red wire on the second pin, black wire on the third pin. So now we've got the fan connected. We're going to put the top cover on, and all that takes is just putting this down on top. Maybe get the wire out of the way. You don't watch the fan blades though. You don't want that wire to be ending up near the fan blades. So, because that would stop the fan from turning. So we've got the cable in there. I'll sort that out later. Maybe I'll put a little zip tie or something on it to keep it nice and neat. And that's it. There's the case assembled. We've got to put the top nuts on here, which are these rounded off head nuts. So we'll put those on there. Finish it off. Now, this is just my option for a Raspberry Pi case. You could go with something else. They make much simpler cases than this to come together. I just like this one because it was nice and acrylic, and I didn't mind putting it together. Short of those nuts that were near the motherboard, which were a little concerning to me, but as long as you're careful with those, you'll be fine. Just go easy on that, and you should be good. So there we go. Let me show you the finished product here in a second. And I'll tighten those down using my little forceps afterwards. But there's what it looks like, mounted and ready to go. Isn't that nice? Again, remember on the fan, red wire to the second pin, black wire to the third pin, and you're ready to go. Right? So there's my hardware assembly. Next, we're going to connect it all up and turn it on. All right, I said I was going to connect it up and turn it on, but at this moment, it's really not ready to run yet. I'm just going to connect some power to it, make sure everything's cool, and then it turns on. And nice, you can see I have the red light on there. The fan is spinning. Not sure whether you can see whether the fan is spinning or not, but it is. And it's not going to boot because we don't have an operating system SD card set up yet. Okay, so the next step before we can get this thing running up and installing the operating system on this thing is to properly format and prepare this microsd chip, which I'm going to use this microsd adapter for right here, and load the OS and software onto it so that this thing can boot up and actually install the operating system, which will be, the next step. So we're going to have to set up the microsd card to do the job of storing the operating system, installing the operating system, and so on. They recommend a minimum 8 gig microsd card for this. They don't specify the speed, but the faster the better. I've used slow 8 gig microsd cards in the Raspberry Pi, and it's just really boggy slow. It's just like a laptop or a PC computer. The faster the drive that stores, the operating system, the faster the machine feels. So I'm using the 32 gig micro SD card from SanDisk. I don't use anything but SanDisk because I think they're the best. I'll put a link to that in the video description below. And I'm just going to insert the card into the micro SD adapter that came with it. If you don't have one of those, usually you get one with the card, so I can't see why you wouldn't have it. But basically all you do is just slide it into the back like so and insert it into the card. Now if you don't have one of these, an alternative would be to use a card reader like this. Again, I'll put a link to it in the video description below for everybody. This one you can plug a card right into it, like into the side of it, and then plug it in as a USB device. And either way it'll work, because it'll plug into your PC or your laptop, and then you can actually download and install the software into this card, which is what we're going to do next. So here we are at the installation page for raspberrypi.org, and this is a great site for everything Raspberry Pi. There's way more than this site, but this is like what I use as my reference. So here it shows you what you're going to need to do the installation on the Raspberry Pi. And it's basically talking about Noobs. Noobs is the operating system installer, but here we're going to really concentrate on right now on the SD card. So a couple things about SD cards. Of course, I've mentioned the speed and the size. They mentioned here that you can get away with a 4 gig size if you use the Raspian light image installation. But I mean, these micro SD cards at this point are so cheap that you should just go for something that's at least 32 gigs. But if you go beyond 32 gigs, you're going to run into some problems, and I'll show you that here. Now, if you go beyond 32 gigs on a micro SD card, what's going to happen is that it's going to be formatted into what they call exFAT, and you can see it here. So it says larger than 64 gig cards will be formatted in exFAT, and exFAT is the file partition type, and that will not work with a Raspberry Pi. So there's ways to get around that. You can actually use much larger than the 64 gig cards if you wish to, but you have to format them in what they call FAT32, which is right here. So there's a little trick for that, and we'll just do that here. Show you how to do that. Now, in Windows, it shows you here. It says, "Hey, use the format 32, which is this GUI format file, which will format the any size micro SD card or USB thumb drive to any drive to FAT32." And I have a video on how to do that, but here I'm just going to show you quickly how to run through this. Now, so less than 32 gigs, you don't have to worry about GUI format. More than 32 gigs, you should be using GUI format to use it. I'm going to pretend that we're using a 64 gig card, but if you're not using a 64 gig card, don't worry about the second part of this installation video. So here I'm just going to open up my file browser. There we go. Now I'm going to plug in or insert the SD card, micro SD card, and you can see there that the micro SD card is on the E drive. Now, understand you got to be real careful when you're formatting drives, because if you format the wrong drive, like your operating system drive or something that's important, you're going to lose data. So this is why I opened up the file browser, and why I just inserted this micro SD card or SD card into my computer to see which drive it's on. It's on E. So now that we know that it's on E, there's nothing on it, but it doesn't matter. Understand that if there's anything on that micro SD card, after you do this, there'll be nothing on it. We're going to be formatting it, which means you're going to be erasing it. So here we're going to run what they call the SD formatter. So if you go here and go to the Raspberry Pi documentation, installation, SDXC formatting, blah blah blah, you'll see that this SD formatter tool. So we'll go to that, and again I'll put links to this in the video description. Here we're going to go to, well, basically it shows you this is the SD memory card formatter, and it's automatic more or less. So we're going to come down here to the links and download the SD card formatter, and then we're going to click on the license agreement here, scroll down to the bottom, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to hit accept. And when it does that, it's going to ask you to save. Some browsers are set up to save automatically to the download directory. Mine asks me every time. So here I'm just going to say save the file. Save the file. And then I'm going to save it in my Raspberry Pi 3 B Plus folder here. And as you can see, I already have it there, but I'll overwrite it. What the heck? Yeah, sure. And then it'll download, and then after it's done downloading, we will be able to actually use it. And if you look here, you can see that it's already completed. It's a very short file. So back to my file browser. We know our SD card is on E. We're going to go to downloads, and then we're going to go to my Raspberry Pi 3. There we go. And you can see here that I have the SD formatter tool, and it is a zip file. And the way you handle that is right-click it and choose Extract All. And when you click on Extract All, it gives you this option. And here we're going to just, you can put it wherever you wish. I'm just going to use the default, which should be a subdirectory inside this folder. So let's extract it. And sure enough, there it is. So if we go back to the Raspberry Pi, you'll see that now we have a subfolder SD card formatter, version 5, WinE, whatever. Double click that, open it up, and you see that there's the setup for it. So you have to install it. We'll double click it. And it's preparing the installation process. There we go. Next, go with all the defaults, accept the license agreement. Choose the default location and click install. And my computer asked me for a user account control. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I just said yes. And then it says launch the program. So yeah, we're going to launch the program. And again, I get a prompt to user account control. I'm going to say yes. You may or may not see that on the video. Okay, so here we have you have two options, and it automatically picks the E drive. Make sure that it's picked the right one, okay? Because if it hasn't, it's going to erase something other than what you want it to erase. We can go with a quick format if you want, or you can do an overwrite format, which takes a lot longer. But here, I'm just going to say quick format. Okay. Now, if this is a 64 gig card, I'll show you what happens with that. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to erase it. But it says formatting will erase all the data on this card. Do you want to continue? Yes, I do. Right? We know it's the E drive. It's done. It's formatted. Now, if this was a 64 gig card, it would have formatted this in what they call the exFAT file system. But if you right-click this and you go to Properties, and you can see here that it's a FAT32, and it needs to be FAT32. So if you go to the next size, which is 64 gigs or above, it would have been exFAT. Now, if you end up with exFAT because you have a larger than 32 gig drive, then or a microsd card, then what you're going to do is going to go back here, back to our back to the raspberrypi.org documentation installation SDX_formatting, blah, 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 web page. And then you're going to download this program, which is for the FAT32 format. And this is a little tool, runs by itself. I've already downloaded it. And basically all you need to do is just click on this picture, and it'll give you the option to download it. So I'm going to hit save the file. It's going to take it to downloads again. I'm going to put it in my Raspberry Pi 3, which obviously I've already downloaded, but I will do it again. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm going to overwrite it, and it's going to download. Open up that folder, and you'll see it there, right here, and you can see that I got GUI format right there. So I'm going to just double-click that. I get a user account control message. I'm not sure whether you're going to see that. And there we have another formatter. See now, if this was a 64 gig card, this formatter doesn't care. It formats everything FAT32. So, again, make sure that you choose the right drive and hit start. And I'll just do that here quick. Yeah, all data will be lost. And it just formats it, and that's it. Okay? So, close that off. That's how you format the micro SD card so it's clean and ready to be to have the installer put on it. It needs to be formatted clean like that. Either one of those methods will work. I suggest if you're using a bigger than 32 gig card to use both methods. In other words, format it with the SD card formatter first, and then go to the GUI format to turn it into a FAT32 drive. Okay. Whether you understand that or not doesn't matter. Just follow those directions. With anything larger than a 64 gig drive, use the GUI format to format it after the primary format, and anything that's 32 gigs or below, just use the SD card formatter and you'll be fine. Okay, so let's minimize this. Let's go back. So that was formatting the drive. Next, we're going to go back one more time to installations, and you'll see here noobs, and that's where we're going to go. All right. Now that we've got the card installed or formatted correctly, we're going to go to what they call new out-of-the-box software, noobs. It's an easy operating system installation manager for the Raspberry Pi. That's basically what it is. It gives you all sorts of options on how to install and download the stuff. Okay. Now, you could buy a pre-installed SD card with this on it from these people here, if you wish. But again, I'm showing you how to do it without that. Next, you can go here to Raspberry Pi downloads. Okay, so that's where we're going to go next. But yeah, so let's go there. So Raspberry Pi downloads, and I'll show you the different ways that you can have this happen. You can go to noobs, and this is what I'm suggesting you do. So we're going to go to new out-of-the-box software experience for beginners. This is videos for beginners, so we'll click on that, go there. There we go. And here noobs is described in many different facets. We've got noobs and noobs lite. Noobs lite is for 4 gig SD cards or small SD cards, which 4 gigs is the minimum they recommend. I recommend get a 32 gig or bigger. I'm going to go with the offline network install. The Noobs Lite is network install only. Okay, now the Noobs Lite will work on any micro SD card. It'll work on a 64, it'll work on a 128, and it'll work on a 4 gig. The difference is between these two is one requires that you've got the Raspberry Pi connected to a network, and it's going to install the operating system by downloading it off the internet first. Now, I may make a video on how that works, or I may not. I may just show you how that works in the installation of the Noobs full version here, because it has the same option. So the Noobs offline network install, offline and network install, will allow you to it'll give you both options. It'll give you the option to install off the card itself, or it will give you the option to install off the network. Not sure if there's any advantage of doing off the network over the offline, but I would think that the off the network installation would be the most recent version. But I will show you how to update the operating system software and everything after you've got the operating system installed. So you've got two options to download: torrent or download the zip. We're going to download the zip. If you have a torrent download program, you could use the torrent, but the zip is fine. This is what I'm clicking on, and I'm going to hit OK on the Noobs download here, save file. It's going to ask me where I want to do it, and of course it's going to go to my Raspberry Pi 3B Plus folder, which is where I want it, and I'm going to download that file. Now as this happens, I'll pick this up after I've got it downloaded, and then we'll continue on from there. Right, the download is completed here. I'm just going to look at it. There it is, Noob version 3.00 .zip. Now understand that these versions will change over time as new versions are added. They take down the old one, give you a new one. But here I'm going to go to the folder. So I'm going to hit the folder, and I'm using Firefox here. So whatever you're using, just go to the folder where you downloaded the file. And when you open it up, it'll show you the Noobs zip file. I'm going to right click that file. I'm going to choose extract all, and it's going to try and it'll default to the same folder you're in, but we don't want to do that. We want to browse, and we want to choose the E drive, that SD micro SD card that we formatted, drive, whichever letter yours is. Mine is E. And be careful where you put this. Make sure you're putting it in the right place. Obviously I am. So I'm going to select that folder. Now it says E:// that's the E drive, and we want to extract all those files to the root directory, which is the E://. So it's perfect right now. Hit extract. All right, it sped that up for us. It took a little bit. That's 1.6 gigs of data. If you look here, if I go back to the root directory, you can see here how much that is. Actually, it's a lot more than that. Let's see. Properties. Use space, 1.7 gigabytes of data, 1.64 gigabytes here, but it's 1.772 as you see. And so now we've got that drive with all the files on it. If you open it up, you'll see, there we go, all the files on it. It's ready to go. Now we can take it out of the PC and out of the SD card holder or adapter and put it into the Raspberry Pi. And I'll show you how to do all that, including the hardware setup next. And then we're going to boot it up and install the operating system. Got the micro SD card already formatted, so we're just going to take it out of the adapter just like that, put it into the Raspberry Pi, flip it over, and it goes with the contact surface on the card towards the board. So if you can read the writing on the actual card itself, you're putting it in correctly, and it just slides in like so. There we go, it's ready to go. So next we're going to connect everything to it. We'll start with power. I'm doing this all powered off currently, and you know, basically I'm going to hook up everything that's required to make this run. I'll show you that next. All right, this is the initial boot screen, but I wanted to show you something that cropped up here on me that may crop up on you guys as well, and that is that little lightning bolt at the top right hand corner. You can see it up there blinking on and off once in a while, and that is indicating a power issue. And I couldn't capture the text boot portion of this boot sequence, but in there I saw a warning about a under voltage issue. But you can see here that I got 5.14 volts going into it and 0.47 amps, which is nowhere near the capacity of the power supply. Power supply should be able to give it about 2.6. But I figured out the problem was this cheap cable I was using, this micro USB cable. So I'm going to change it out, and if you have the same problem, well, try and change the cable to a known good one. I actually had to go through about 4 or 5 of the cheap cables I had before I got a good one. I bought a lot of them at the dollar store, so that explains that. But you know, even if I try and wiggle the connection to try and get it to work right, didn't make a difference. So I'm going to reboot this time, and I'm going to put a cable I know works on it, and we'll continue on from there installing the operating system. Just wanted to show you that little problem and how I dealt with it. I just replaced the USB cable with one that fixed the problem. Okay, now that we've got the power problem sorted out, hopefully we can you know, move on with the installation. You see here booting that what you should see on booting, you should see a 4-color pattern in a square when you first boot up. Hopefully I can get that captured, and then it'll resize the micro SD card a little bit. You'll see that on the screen, and then you'll end up here at the noobs install screen, and you'll have 2 options. You know, again, we're here to install Raspian, so I'm going to choose that. My mouse should now be working, so we'll see if that, yep, it is. And you see that you have a Wi-Fi option. That's a network install if you want to do that. You could also just plug a Ethernet cable into your router and into the actual Raspberry Pi and do it that way. But we're not doing an online installation. I'm doing a full installation. That's what I downloaded and showed you how to do. So we're going to choose the Raspian full, recommended here. We're going to hit install, and down here you'll see that says English UK keyboard. Well, this computer was built in the UK, so that's why it's defaulting to that. I changed it to US English. I don't think it makes any difference, but we'll just use that anyway. And then I'm going to click on install here and go ahead. Warning, this will this will install a selected operating system. All existing data on the drive will be overwritten, including the OSs that were already installed. So again, just, standard boilerplate. You don't have to worry about it because there shouldn't be anything else on that stick anyway. So let's go. All right, then we go through this whole process where Raspian and the Raspberry Pi are introduced to you through all these install screens. They should take, well, in my case, about 15 minutes, I believe, 10 to 15 minutes, depending on the speed of your card. That's why I use the SanDisk card, because it's really nice and quick, and I like that. And you can see the activity on the green LED down there, the green and red LED. Hopefully I get that on the screen for you. But again, I'll let this go through, and I'll pick it up on the other side. When it's done. I might time lapse it, or I might just cut it. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, that's it. We're up to fully installed. All we need to do here is click OK, and it will continue on. It'll reboot at this point, but let's hit the OK and see what happens. Sure enough, it is. I don't know how much my video capture tool is going to get of this, but we'll see what happens. Looks like it's going to get it all. There we go. Now it's booting into the operating system itself. This is basically how it should work for you. Now we're at the basic install screen, or the default install screen after the boot process and installation process. And you can see what it says. Let's hit next on that. And then choose, the country, of course. It's going to choose United Kingdom because of where the origin of the machine is. But we're going to change that. Make it United States. You change it to whatever you are at. American English, time zone. Well, I'm in Central, so let's see if they have that. Okay. Don't see anything in here. Maybe I missed it. I don't see it. Okay, we'll go with Chicago. That'll work for me. Then we'll go next. Now you have to set these settings. You should set these settings. And then enter a password for your machine, whatever you want it to be. I'll put mine in here. You won't be able to see it anyway. Make sure it matches. We'll continue on. Next, activate your password. Now, every time that you reboot your machine, it's going to be asking you for that password. So, make sure you remember it. Write it down somewhere. Okay, so now it's looking for a Wi-Fi network. I'll connect it to mine. Where is mine? You can see all the nice different networks that are around me here. Oh, there it is. Sorry. And then click next. And of course, it's going to need a password. I'll put that in. Hopefully I remembered it. And you see how simple it is to hook this up to Wi-Fi. It's automatic on the first boot. Now, if you have Ethernet connected to it, or if you want to connect Ethernet to your computer, right, or to your Raspberry Pi right now, you could, and it would connect you to the internet as well, as long as your router is correctly set up. Okay, let's see if it does an update. Let's do next. And I don't know if you can see it or if it's capturing it, but there is a black border all the way around the screen on my screen, and I will be showing you how to get rid of that promptly. Okay, it looks like it's going through an update process. I'm going to let it go through that and then pick it up at the end. Okay, the system is up to date now, and we just hit OK on that. The Raspberry Pi is now set up and ready to go. So if we hit press reboot, we should reboot it, and basically to make sure that all the updates and everything take hold. So I'm going to hit the reboot button. And hopefully it caught that 4-color boot sequence. And that's what you should have seen when you first booted up the machine. And we're just going through the boot process here. And it should ask me for my password on the way in. Or make a liar out of me. I don't know. Looks like it's going to make a liar out of me. Yep. Okay. Next, I'm going to show you how to get rid of this black border all the way around the screen. I don't know if you're suffering this on your installation, but I am here. So I'm going to find out the solution for that and then post it here for you people so that you can actually have the screen fill the whole screen as opposed to having this black border all the way around. So let's get rid of this black border all the way around the screen. We've got a Raspberry Pi that can do 1080p full display, and we have a monitor that's 1080p. So it should be displaying edge to edge, and it's not. So let's fix that. So here we're going to go to the terminal window, which is this little icon. And when you put your mouse over it, it says terminal on it as well. So just click on that. Okay, here we're going to type in, well, hey, welcome to the Linux command line. If it's for your first time seeing it, we're going to do some command line editing right now. So what we're going to do is type in a few simple commands. First one's going to be sudo, S-U-D-O, and you just type on your keyboard and it comes up on the screen. And then a space. So sudo is basically telling the computer you're going to be running as the super user, whatever the next thing you type in, which is the next program. And the next program we're going to type in to run is an editing program called Nano. So type in N-A-N-O and then space again. So we're running as a super user the program Nano, which is a text editor. And we're going to edit a text file, which is part of the boot configuration. So here we're going to type in / then B-O-O-T, boot, / again, C-O-N-F-I-G, so config, .txt. So we're going to be editing this file as a super user. So here we're going to hit enter. And everything in this window is, you can't navigate it with the mouse. It's very, very, I don't know, choppy when you try and do that. It doesn't work right. So here I'm just going to use the keyboard only to edit this file. So we're going to use the down arrow key on your keyboard, and that moves the cursor down. We're going to go down till you get to a line that says disable overscan. And this says disable underscore overscan equals 1. Now these hashtags in front of these lines are comments. So when you put a hashtag in front of a line in a text file, in Linux anyways, it basically makes the line a rem statement or a remark or a comment. And in order to activate that command, you just need to remove the comment or hashtag line symbol from the front of it. So all you need to do is just put your cursor on the hashtag, hit the delete key, and the hashtag disappears. And now that line is no longer a comment. Now it's a command. So that's all we need to do to disable that. To get that command to run and fix this problem. Now, if this doesn't fix it for you, you may have to go further and uncomment these 4 lines down here and play with the values that they equal. And I believe 20 is the optimal value, but you need to play with it. I don't have that problem. All I got to do is just uncomment disable underscore overscan, and it will fix my problem. So here we're going to save this change. So we're going to hit Control on your keyboard, the Control key, and the X key. That will allow us to exit out of the program and out of the text editor. And here you have an option to say no or yes. If you say no, you just throw away all your changes. So if you mess this file up and you don't know whether you edited it right, just Control X and hit no, and then come back into it and do it correctly. But here I know I've done it right, so I'm going to hit yes, and it still gives you an option. It says, hey, what do you want this file name to be called? I'm going to go with what it was originally called, which is /boot /config.txt. So here we're going to hit enter again. And that saves the file. Now, if you want to see whether you did it right or not, just use your up arrow key, which gives you your last command. Hit enter, look at it, and you can see that the hashtag from disable underscore overscan equals 1 is gone. So it's right here. So hit Control and X again. That gets us out of the actual text editing program. We're back to the command line. Now, this problem should be fixed. The only way to find out is to reboot the computer. And all you got to do that is just type in reboot. So REBOOT, and then hit the enter key. And when you hit the enter key, it'll reboot. Make sure you save all your programs and any files you got to open before you do this command. And if you want to quickly reboot whenever you want, just open up the command line and type in reboot like this, and then hit enter. That's what we're gonna do next here. Okay, and the machine is now rebooting. And when it comes back in, we should have the black border removed from around all the edges. There we go. And it looks like it is gone because that text that was rolling there was right to the edge. We'll see when we get to the graphics portion, the GUI. There we go. Edge to edge display. Yes, perfect. It's exactly the way it should be. So that's how you get rid of the black border from around the screen. Next, I'm going to show you how to update the operating system and the programs in the operating system, and then we'll go from there. All right, now I'm going to show you how to manually update the Raspberry Pi. So what we're going to do is go back to our command line again. So we're going to open up the terminal window or the terminal program here up in the upper left-hand corner. And we're going to type in a specific command. And that again is going to be run as a super user, and that is sudo, S-U-D-O. And then we're going to hit space, and we're going to hit apt hyphen get, and then we're going to put another space and put in update. All right, so we just basically are running the update program for the what they call the database or the repositories that are built into the operating system. When you last saw that update program when we were installing, this is doing the same thing. So here we're going to hit enter here. Now you need to be online, you need to be connected. Obviously I am through Wi-Fi. So here we're going to hit enter. And you can see that it's, updating the packages. And what this does is gets you the latest package updates, which means that when you run the upgrade, this is the update. When you run the next step, which is the upgrade, you'll get the latest packages installed. All right, so there, it's done. It's done its update. Next, I'm going to do the upgrade, which basically takes a look at that database and says, hey, let's see what packages need to be upgraded. So let's do that. Again, sudo, S-U-D-O, space, apt get upgrade. Now, I could have just gone arrow up here and just edited the update. See, I'll show you what I mean. Okay, if I hit my arrow up, you get the last command. See, on the keyboard, you hit the arrow up and you get the last command. So I could have just done that and said upgrade, right? Deleted the update and changed it to upgrade. So sudo space apt dash get space upgrade, and here we hit enter again. And as you can see, I'm fully updated at this point because I just ran this when we first installed the operating system anyway, as you saw that update procedure. Now, sometimes in here, you'll get some packages that are held back. In other words, it'll say, not zero. It's here you can see that it says, zero not upgraded or zero to remove. Okay, but sometimes that will change and you'll get something in there that's not upgraded or to be removed because it can't handle it for some reason. So basically at this point, what you would do at that point is use the same upgrade command, sudo apt get upgrade, but then instead of that, you're going to put in dist dash upgrade. So Now it says sudo apt dash get space dist dist dash upgrade. All right, then we hit enter here and see what happens, but nothing should happen. There you go. And that will resolve those package dependencies that you had if anything was held back by the previous two commands. So that's the update procedure on the Raspian operating system. Again, it's Linux, so there's some command line, and I think that's kind of the fun in it. Again, remember that if you use your up arrow key, you'll get your last commands, and you can keep doing that by just cycling up and down through the arrow keys in the actual terminal program. So now we've got that done. Next, I'm going to show you how to update the firmware of the actual Raspberry Pi itself. I just checked online for the firmware updater, and yes, there is a firmware updater, but I'm not going to show it to you because it's dangerous. And what do I mean by dangerous? Meaning that if you run it, there is a possibility that you will make your Raspberry Pi unbootable. And it's not really required to have anymore. Now the firmware is updated every time you update your OS. So there's no real point in updating the firmware other than to live a little dangerously and maybe get a benefit out of it. But I don't recommend it because there is a chance that your Raspberry Pi will not boot any longer. And I don't know what the fix for that is. And I suspect the fix is buy another Raspberry Pi. But, I don't recommend risky behavior with computers that can cause them to never work again. So do not do the firmware upgrade. It's done every time you load a new version of your operating system like Raspbian Pi here. So next, I'm going to show you a few of the features here. I'm going to close off this terminal window here. We don't need it anymore currently. Let's go through the buttons here. This is your main applications menu. Now, if you have a Windows key on your keyboard, you can hit that and that'll pop it open just like it does in Windows. And that's what I just did. As you saw, it opened by itself. I was using the keyboard. So again, if you don't have that, just click on it with your mouse. We've got several different categories. I've got programming here, which is part of the reason the Raspbian is built, is to help people learn how to program. So, if you're giving this to a budding programmer, he'll find that pretty handy right there. We've got education, Smart Sim. We've got Office. Your standard Office suite from LibreOffice, which by the way does work in Windows as well. So if you want a free Office suite, you go to LibreOffice.com or Google it, and you can have that in Windows as well. And you can share files from that back and forth between the two. We've got Internet, Chromium web browser, a mail program, and a VNC viewer. If you don't know what that stuff is, well, we know everybody knows what Chrome is. And the mail is just a mail program, and VNC is a program for remoting machines. So again, stuff for you to practice and explore and play with. Sound and video, VLC media player, graphics. We've got an image viewer. Here we've got games. And that's pretty cool. We've got Minecraft here. Let's click on that. Look at that, Pi Edition Minecraft. So yeah, you could hit start game or join a game. I'm not going to do that. I'm just showing you that you can have fun with this as well. Let's continue here. And in the games, we've got Python games, which are much more basic games. You choose what you want. Like, let's go for Reversey. And you get a Reversey game. And, basic stuff. But still, like I said, you can have fun with it. 5-block Tetris, whatever you wish. Right? So let's do that. And look at that. We're playing Tetris. Isn't that fun? So yeah, lots of options, and you can load more software into the machine. I'll show you that in a second. Accessories. We've got an archiver, which is like zipping. Calculator, file manager. That's handy. A PDF viewer, also handy. An SD card copier. This copies your SD card, your current running operating system over to something else like a USB stick so that you can back it up. Task manager. Well, that's kind of self-explanatory. Let's click on that, see what we get. Shows you what's running. It shows you how much of the CPU is being used, how much memory is being used. all sorts of neat stuff. Again, this is all about having fun and experimenting. Don't worry about, messing up the operating system, because this video shows you how to, totally start from scratch and reload it and start again. So if you mess it up and it doesn't boot anymore or something like that, just erase the SD card, do the install again, and you're off to the races. So don't worry about it. It's fun to experiment, and it's pretty safe. Again, don't you do the firmware upgrade though. Okay, that's not safe. So we go back here. Text editor, terminal. We've seen the terminal. That's the command line. Help, pretty self-explanatory. Preferences, add, remove software. That's handy. You can do that on the command line, or you can do it using this app. Appearances, audios, device settings, keyboard and mouse. Menu editor, kind of self-explanatory stuff. Run is to run a single command, and shutdown is, shut down. We've got reboot, shut down, or log out. So those are the options there. And then we come over here and we have, of course, the trash bin. Pretty standard, works the same way as it does in Windows. We've got the Bluetooth, which is neat. I like the Bluetooth feature on this little thing because I can hook up my Bluetooth keyboard, which I'm going to do, and Bluetooth earphones so I can listen to audio through it, which is cool. So yeah, make discoverable. That's neat. We've got the Wi-Fi, which you saw before. I'm connected there. Audio, and this is like not a task manager, but it shows you the current load on the CPU, and time, and of course, and on the very end, that arrow is the eject button. Basically, it allows you to, eject media that you plug in. So that's what I'll do next. I'll plug in a USB stick here so that we can see the file manager and how everything works. And the file manager is handy. It's over here on top. It's quite useful. Okay, so it says removable medium inserted. So, it even tells me Windows software or some type. Just a USB stick I got on my disk. So I'm going to hit OK. You can say always perform this action every time it opens, and you won't get this prompt anymore. Just pop open the file manager, but I like it like this. So I'm going to hit OK. And there you go. Brings up the file manager, and you can see what's on that USB stick, and do whatever you want with it. Including, if you want to edit something, just double click on it and look, boom, it comes up, right? So you can edit it, or you can leave it alone, open up files, run whatever you wish. So that's the file manager. Past that, I don't know if I'm going to go too much deeper than this. I mean, you could right click the desktop and change the desktop preferences. Neat stuff like, currently we're on road. Let's change it to clouds or something, and hit OK. And then you get the clouds. Whatever, again, play with it, have fun, right? And let's go back to road. I actually like the road picture. Open and OK. So yeah, I mean, if you right click the screen, you'll get the desktop preferences, or you can go to the menu over here and play with that under preferences as well, appearance and settings. Up to you. As you can see, it's pretty snappy. It works great. And it's, again, this is a full computer running this operating system, and just play with it. Basically, that's how you're going to learn how to use it. If you mess it up, don't worry about it. You can always just erase that micro SD card, reinstall it, and start again, right? That's kind of the fun of it, actually. And that's why it's good for novices and people who want to experiment, because hey, there's no real damage here other than the firmware update, which you tell them not to do it, and if they do, you'll know because the thing won't work anymore. But again, easy to handle. So that's my basic installation video on this Raspberry Pi. This is the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus, which currently is the latest version. I'm just going to wrap this up here from about this video. I wanted to show everybody how to get from out of the box to totally operating system, and I think I've succeeded in that here. All right, that's it for my video on the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus or B Positive. This thing's been a lot of fun for me. I think it's a fun project for anybody who likes to tinker. If you know somebody who's into working with hardware and so on, this wouldn't be a bad gift. I certainly would enjoy getting it, and I've enjoyed playing with it. I may make more videos on the Raspberry Pi 3, this model, because I had so much fun with it. Maybe I'll try a different OS or some other application for this device. Again, links for everything used in this video to make this machine work are in the video description below for you. If you have any comments or questions, post them in the comments section below the video as well. I check those regularly and I respond to them quite regularly as well. Also, if you have a video suggestion, hey, put it in the comments section for me. I'm happy to see it and happy to entertain it. I have done many videos suggested to me by by you. So if you have something like that for me, I would greatly appreciate that as well. Once again, everything, all the hardware, keyboards, memory, all that stuff in the video description below for the Raspberry Pi 3. I hope you enjoyed this video. All right, if you liked this video and it helped you out in some way, do me a huge favor. Click on the like button on the bottom right-hand corner and give me a thumbs up. That helps my video, helps my channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Also up here on the top corner, you'll see a picture of me. That picture will is a subscription link. It'll subscribe you to my channel. And once you click on that picture, you will get a notification for a bell icon. The bell icon is actually a notification bell. And anytime I put up a new video, once you subscribe, if you hit that bell, you'll be notified. And then you can watch it at your own time. Once again, and just like always, thank you for your time and thank you for watching.